Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom.
Of all the things astronaut Chris Hadfield has done to capture the world's imagination, this is his biggest hit.
This is Major Tom to ground control. I've left forevermore. And I'm floating in a most peculiar way.
Filmed while commanding the International Space Station, his rendition of David Bowie's A Space Oddity has been watched by more than 18 million people.
Where am I sitting in a tin can? Far above the world.
It's made you the greatest space salesman since Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah, I'm still not intending to be a space salesman.
Strumming a guitar 250 kilometres above Earth and moving at 27,744 kilometres an hour is just a small part of Chris Hadfield's fascinating story. A father of three whose passion for space is contagious.
I've flown 100,000 miles. I'm feeling very still.
It's somewhere between gorgeous and frightening, you know, just to see all of that. To have every place you've ever heard about or dreamed about or read about just pouring past in all of its completely self-unconscious majesty.
Just as if I started crying, my eye is full of tears.
Chris Hadfield is the ultimate space showman.
And so if you keep crying, you just ended up with a bigger and bigger ball of water in your eye. Okay, we got one tortilla.
Making a peanut butter sandwich in zero gravity
Hey, I noticed something cool about the honey. The bubble is floating in the middle.
becomes a user-friendly lesson in space science.
Envelope, peanut butter and honey's ready to eat.
I think you've single-handedly renewed most of our interest in space.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to. I meant to let people see what was going on, and hopefully they would be interested in it.
So here's a soaking wet washcloth.
It's hard not to be interested in what Chris Hadfield has to say.
And now let's start wringing it out.
Of the 538 astronauts, he's arguably the most enthusiastic.
The water's all over my hands. In fact, it wrings out of the cloth into my hands.
Certainly, he's among the best at communicating the exhilaration of space travel.
9 minutes is how long it takes from sitting there thinking maybe something magic is about to happen to when you are suddenly going 8 kilometers a second, 28,000 kilometers an hour, 25 times the speed of sound, where you can go around the world in 90 minutes. You know, you can cross from one side of Australia to the other in 5 or 6 minutes.
Was there that first pinch yourself moment that I'm actually here, I'm actually in space?
When you first launch is a really rigorous process, you know, riding a rocket ship, and you're very much focused and involved with the mechanisms that are getting you there, but at the same time, it is a physical process. And at the end of it, instantaneously, the engine shut off, and you're weightless, and you're in space, as if someone has slammed a door shut and then opened another one. And the first thing you notice is that everything starts floating up in front of you. The checklist that you were holding in your hand floats. Someone just repealed the law of gravity. And everybody laughs in the whole cockpit. Everybody laughs, partially out of nervous relief, but partially out of just unbidden delight at the fact that that suddenly things are way different.
It's definitely different from Chris Hadfield's childhood. The 54-year-old Canadian native was raised on a corn farm, and like millions around the world, was captivated by what he watched on July 21st, 1969.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia.
I watched Neil and Buzz walk on the moon, and all of that merged together into not even just a dream, but a sense of long-term hopeful purpose to my life that somehow turned into a reality.
But look at that, you can actually see pieces of the moon.
It was here at the Ontario Space Centre, as a 9-year-old, Chris realised that what he saw on TV that day could actually become his life.
There they go.
A small piece of moon rock was all it took to trigger his imagination and determination.
It obviously was important for me and had a big impact on how real my dreams seemed.
So when you're in space, do you still think of that 9-year-old boy and his dreams to be an
that
astronaut?
9-year-old boy has his hand up my back and is moving my adult puppet around all the time. He's having a great time.
The path from the corn farm to the cosmos was a long one. Chris first became a test pilot, flying more than 70 different types of aircraft before achieving his dream job. Chris's first trip to space was in 1995 on board the Space Shuttle Atlantis.
Liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis.
What are your thoughts for your husband up there in space?
I'm just excited he's having fun. He's a natural. If there was a picture in the encyclopedia under astronaut, it would be his picture.
I think I'll start with the launch video because it just grabs everybody's attention.
And there, for the whole ride, has been his childhood sweetheart and wife, Helene.
He was born to do this. It's just, I'm just so happy for him. You know, I don't worry about him. I know where he is.
We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a...
But in 2003, the dangers of being an astronaut were dramatically and tragically beamed around the world.
Shuttle in a heads-down, wings-level position for the 8.5-minute ride to orbit.
And would affect Chris in the most personal of ways.
30 seconds into the...
And I helped kill him. And so it makes me feel awful.
As the Space Shuttle Columbia re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, it disintegrated, killing all 7 crew members. Chris knew all of them. How does that impact you? How does that affect you?
I was living in Russia. I was NASA's director of operations in Russia. During launch, a big piece of insulation had come off the external tank, the fuel tank, and hit the wing. And one of the ground cameras had videoed it. But I sat in my little apartment in Russia and played that little video clip over and over again, watching this piece of foam come off, get caught by the wind, and slam into the wing and shatter like a snowball. Because in my sort of engineering judgment, my test pilot background, my feeling was that's not right. And I sat and thought about it, and then the powers that be had said, you know, it was just foam, and by our calculations and such, and we've seen stuff like this before, we think we're okay. I could have stopped that whole process. I could have stood up and said, and screamed at the top of my professional lungs and said, we cannot let those people come back into the atmosphere until we've had a look and see if there's damage. I will not rest until Rick Husband and his crew get in a spacesuit and crawl around there and look and see if we damage the wing or not. And I didn't do that. And if I had, maybe we could have saved those guys' lives. But I made the wrong judgment, and so did NASA management, and so did the people on board. We all made the wrong judgment, and we killed those guys. Through our own deliberate decision-making, we killed the crew of Columbia.
That moment changed space travel forever and made Chris Hadfield determined to honour his friends by sharing the wonders of space like never before. Social media allowed Chris to keep the world updated with some amazing photographs. You've helped us see Australia from a very different perspective.
Oh, Australia is like nowhere else on Earth. If it's glowing purple and yellow and red, then you go, I'm over the outback. Let's go have a look. And there is the outback. And you can almost see right across Australia just in a glance. But nothing in the world looks like the outback, because it's been ground into multicolored dust over millions and millions of years, and it's so dry that it brings out the colors and the crystallization of all of the surface there, and the textures of it are so sculpted. It's as if someone intended it to be viewed from space.
And just a couple of days before he left the International Space Station, he made a decision that would change his life and give space exploration a much-needed PR boost. You lay claim to having made the first music video in space.
Yeah. I didn't intend to make the first music video in space. There was just a generic hubbub of people from around the world saying, oh, you got to record Space Oddity up there. That's the classic. Do Space Oddity. I was like, why would I do Space Oddity? It's not a song I normally do, and the astronaut dies at the end. It's not why would I sing that song?
Our commander comes down back to Earth and knows.
But with encouragement from his son, permission from David Bowie, and a few changed lyrics, Chris Hadfield was convinced.
Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom?
The impact of that clip wouldn't be felt by Chris until he felt another impact, re-entering the atmosphere.
Last glimpse of the world.
Since the end of the shuttle program, returning to Earth is now little more than a controlled crash in a Russian-built space capsule.
Separation confirmed at 6:08 p.m. Central Time.
It is like riding a meteorite home. It's essentially a flattened ball that comes storming into the atmosphere, and just like a shooting star, is just the friction of the air slowing down a blunt thing. And you take all the punishment. There's no wings. There's no grace to it. And after having been weightless for half a year, to suddenly be subjected to 4 or 8 times your weight is brutal.
Heading down towards the touchdown just about 10 minutes from now.
Then, as the parachute starts to open, it's like someone flicking you on the end of a string, and the whole thing is whipped around, like ridiculously violently. It's like dice in a cup. You laugh because it's so violent. The three of us were just going, this is ridiculous. You're so painfully being zipped around. He's like, we're along for the ride right now.
Once there, you can see the soft landing rockets fire.
And the Russians tell you in training, remember, just before landing, stop talking so you don't bite your tongue off. Because that's how violent it's going to be. Stop talking so you don't bite your tongue off. Okay, that is a good indicator of what this is going to be like.
Okay, let's get ready for the hatch opening.
And when he did come back down to Earth, Chris began to appreciate how he'd become the most unlikely of superstars.
All 3 crew members now safely out.
People started sending me pictures of their children watching this video and being fascinated by it, because it's not a special effect. And for me, that's really inspirational to think about what these little kids are internalizing as normal, and what opportunity they see, and what they might have a chance to do as a result. A really unintended consequence of me floating around singing this song, but a really delightful impact. And Bowie sent word that he really liked how it came out too. So
you went to space an astronaut, you came home a rock star.
Yeah, I'm not a rock star.
You ready? Say astronaut.
In his hometown of Toronto, Canada, and at the exact place that inspired him as a 9-year-old,
Nice to meet you. Hi.
Chris Hadfield is now inspiring others to live their dreams.
It's very nice to meet you.
How has it changed your perspective of living back here and being part of
I think having gone around the world, I don't know what the exact number is, around 2,500 times, and so seeing 2,500 extra sunsets and sunrises, and seeing the whole world that way, to have been outside on a spacewalk and seen the world so directly, it gives me more patience and a real sense of optimism, actually. That sense of us is one that comes from the experiences that I've had. And if you have that sense, the shared sense that we are all passengers on this one particular spaceship, we're all crew, in fact. We're not just passengers, but we're crew. But my fundamental feeling is one of optimism about the whole thing. And it's kind of a nice byproduct of being an astronaut.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.